Hello, I'm Bob Schieffer, and welcome to the CBS Evening News online edition. Just ahead, in a rare news conference, a combative President Bush defends his policy of eavesdropping on American citizens and takes on his war critics. John Roberts will have the story. Also, a seaplane carrying 19 people has crashed off Miami Beach, Florida. Bob Orr will have details on that. And Defending Christmas will give you the inside story on why hundreds of lawyers are ready to hit the courtrooms. It's all starting now on the CBS Evening News online edition. During his speech from the Oval Office last night, the president admitted the war in Iraq has not always gone the way he wanted, but he asked Americans for patience, and he vowed to win it. Well, today he was in a much more combative mood at a White House news conference. He went head-on at his critics, accused Congress of refusing to give him the tools he needs to keep the country safe, and said as long as the terrorist threat continues, he will use the National Security Agency to spy on Americans, even though some critics say he's breaking the law. Our first report on this tonight comes from John Roberts at the White House.
It was the secret program to spy on suspected terrorists in America that got most of the attention at this final press conference of the year. President Bush was defiant and unapologetic.
I just want to assure the American people that, one, I've got the authority to do this. Two, it is a necessary part of my job to protect you. And three, we're guarding your civil liberties.
And he had harsh words for the officials who leaked the story. A devastating blow, he said, to national security.
But it is a shameful act by somebody who has got secrets of the United States government and feels like they need to disclose them publicly.
President Bush insists both the Constitution and congressional authorization for the war on terror give him the power to circumvent the courts when eavesdropping on suspected terrorists. And he is determined to keep doing it. But many legal scholars believe the program is utterly and completely illegal.
I think their opinion is ludicrous. I think Congress expressly addressed whether the president could do this during wartime, and they said yes, but only for 15 days in an emergency situation. The president has now done it for 4 years.
The president also had some choice words today for Democratic senators who are blocking renewal of the Patriot Act, saying it is essential to connect the sort of dots that were missed before the attacks on America.
It is inexcusable for the United States Senate to let this Patriot Act expire.
At the core of that dispute, civil liberties, made all the more worrisome, say critics, with the disclosure of the secret eavesdropping program. When someone wondered about the appearance of a creep toward unchecked power, the president erupted.
To say unchecked power basically is ascribing some kind of dictatorial position to the president, which I strongly reject.
On Iraq, Mr. Bush admitted intelligence failures may hurt his ability to convince the world of future threats from nations like Iran. And he admitted that serious mistakes have set back the progress of training Iraqi forces. But he took a swing at critics who are insisting he set a timetable to pull U.S. troops out.
We got young men and women over there sacrificing. And all of a sudden, because of politics or some focus group or some poll, they stand up and say we're out of there.
President Bush also had a word of warning for members of Congress considering hearings into his spying tactics, cautioning that any airing of the program in public or its techniques will only give the terrorists the opportunity to adjust. Bob?
A vintage seaplane carrying 20 people crashed in shallow water just off Miami Beach today, shortly after taking off on a flight to the Bahamas. All on board, 18 passengers and 2 crew were killed. Our aviation correspondent Bob Orr now with more on that.
The seaplane went down in the shipping channel at the southern tip of Miami Beach. Within minutes, lifeguards paddling on surfboards joined rescue boats and the Coast Guard in a desperate search for survivors. But there were no signs of life in the water, only bodies, which were recovered one by one. A fisherman on nearby South Beach saw the plane go down.
It exploded before it hit the water. Like one wing came off, and the rest of it just went straight down in the water. A big ball of fire.
A German tourist snapped this digital picture. which seems to show smoke rising from the watery crash site.
It blew up in the air and one wing fell off.
The twin-engine plane took off from the waters at the Watson Island Sea Base just after 2:30, heading east toward Bimini in the Bahamas. It was purposely flying low to stay clear of larger airplanes, and the pilots were not in contact with air traffic controllers. But in a matter of seconds, just 2 miles or so after takeoff, the plane with 20 people on board, including 3 children, crashed. The pilots made no emergency calls, and there were no cries for help. The plane, built just after World War II but outfitted with newer engines, was similar to this one, operated by Chalk's Ocean Airways. The company's been flying since 1919 and with very few problems. 2 crew members were killed in a crash in 1994, but this is the first fatal crash involving passengers.
The plane which went down today was also involved in another incident a year ago when it broke a landing gear after touching down a bit too hard. Now investigators are checking to see if that event played any role whatsoever in today's crash. Bob?
Thank you, Bob. President Bush today put out his annual Christmas message and his annual Hanukkah message and his annual Kwanzaa message. Trying to keep everyone happy these days is a real challenge, one that sometimes actually winds up in court. Here's Cynthia Bowers now with tonight's Inside Story.
You have to look pretty hard to even see what's at the center of this Christmas storm. It's there, on this tiny traffic island on a beach near Jacksonville. For 7 years, a Christmas tree has quietly marked the holiday season here. But things got a lot louder this year. First, a local Jewish group got permission to put a menorah alongside.
We want to celebrate our holiday in this festival in a public way, in a way that people can participate in.
That participation prompted a protest and eventually a federal lawsuit after a request to put up a nativity scene nearby was denied because officials worried it was too religious for public property and would violate court rulings on separation of church and state.
For some folks, it's a time of celebration and family, and for others, it's lawyers and judges.
And just like that, this small dispute was at the heart of a national debate.
But it's not so surprising when you consider that 2 Christian legal groups say they've signed up more than 1,500 lawyers specifically to find cases like this.
A lot of us have said enough is enough.
Matt Staver heads a group leading a charge he calls a defense of Christmas against the politically correct.
We believe it's the kind of religious confusion or discrimination that happens 365 days a year that escalates during December. We need to draw a line in the sand.
The fighting over just how much Christ should be in Christmas is flaring up all over. First, Walmart was targeted for a boycott after the giant retailer replaced Merry Christmas with Happy Holidays on store signs. Then the White House angered conservative Christians with similar wording on its holiday card. And in Denver, officials gave in to public pressure and allowed this nativity-themed parade float. In the end, the beachside nativity was allowed to go up, which ends this particular dispute but doesn't resolve the ongoing issue.
We're fighting wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. America as a culture have always fought for religious tolerance in every other part of the world, and sometimes it seems that the biggest battle for religious tolerance is here at home.
A battle at home over, of all things, peace on earth and goodwill toward men. Cynthia Bowers, CBS News, Neptune Beach, Florida.
More stories are just a click away, and don't forget to join me on television for the on-air edition of the CBS Evening News. On Tuesday's broadcast, looking for a better night's sleep, we'll show you a radical new kind of bed that doesn't even have a mattress. For CBSNews.com, I'm Bob Schieffer.